Hot 91.9. Before that, Bob Marley. And the sun is shining, which is really great when it comes to using solar technology. This power feature brought to you by Sinetech, the power of choice. I've got the CEO of Sinetech on the line, Chris Rodgers. Morning, Chris.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
So 2 weeks ago, you were chatting to Paul about how solar panels work and so forth. Today, we're going to break it down, get into the nitty-gritty, because one of the big questions people always have is, how much is it going to cost me? Because cash flow is a real issue for so many people when they consider installing something like this. But I must just say, I was at Macro just the other day, Macro in Woodmead, and I thought it was very clever. They've converted all of their carports into solar panels. So it's definitely a trend. That's where it's going.
Well, the interesting one with that, the Macro installation is that in fact, Macro didn't pay to do that. A company went and did that and essentially said, we'll do this for you as long as you buy the power from us. So quite an interesting model but that just goes to show the viability of solar power.
Because whether it's business or residential, I mean, it really is a viable solution. I mean, the South African sun is, shining blazingly hot. But now, when someone says, "Okay, I've got a 3-bedroom house, what's it going to cost me?" What do you say?
I get that question about 7 times a day. The 3-bedroom house, I've got 2 kids and a dog called Rover, and awesome.
And an old fridge that needs power.
Absolutely. And I ask, what's the kid's name? And they go like, well, what's the relevance? Well, what's the relevance? You have a 3-bedroom house, because people use power differently.
Okay.
And it's all about the peaks and the troughs of when you use power. And you could have 2 identical houses right next door to each other. And the one can use, hundreds of kilowatts, and the other one be more conservative. So it all depends on how each individual.
Because most homeowners don't really know how much power they consume. They just get the electric bill and
then it brings tears to their eyes.
Yeah. Yes.
What choice do I have? Well, you do have a choice, and that is to go to solar. The problem, of course, is the capital cost. So if you were to do, and we'll just use a 5 kilowatt system as an example. If you were to do a normal 3-bedroom dwelling, 2 bathrooms, that sort of a dwelling, typically a 5 kilowatt system would supplement your power adequately, because it's not about getting off the grid. And a lot of people say, well, I would really like to get completely off the grid. I understand the sentiment, but the reality is that getting off the grid technically is not a clever idea, because we use what we call a grid-tied system. Now, what that means is the piece of equipment that we put in that converts the current from the solar power, solar panel, to AC, so DC to AC is called an inverter. Those inverters need the frequency reference from the grid, so you still need the grid if you're going to have a grid-tied system. Yes, you may have a system that is constructed in such a size, in such a manner that we've engineered it so well that you're using very little of Eskom's power, but you must remember that your Eskom power is tiered in terms of the pricing. So at the bottom end, Eskom power is relatively inexpensive. It's sort of sub R1, but then when you move to the next tier, it gets more expensive. So solar would cost you probably R1.20, R1.30 per kilowatt hour installed, and then now you move to R1.80 on Eskom. So that's the piece that you want to provide from your own rooftop.
So if you had to give a ballpark figure, I know it's really hard because it is dependent on usage, but I mean, are we talking hundreds of thousands? Are we talking tens of thousands?
We're talking probably for a 5 kilowatt system about R100,000, more or less.
And that 5 kilowatt system, would that be able to completely run the house, or is it like with some of these inverters where you say, well, you can't use the fridge or you can't use the stove?
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. There's certain things that you avoid. So and what we say to clients, the first thing to do is put in LED lights because they're so efficient. Put in a solar geyser, which we don't do. We only do the PV solar, the photovoltaic solar, which is electricity generation. Do that first, because your geyser is usually about 30% of your power. Get that done first, and then move across to solar. So yeah, I guess we should be doing other stuff too, but we specialize in what we do, and we do that.
So from a financial analysis point of view, how long do you think it would take if I had to use Eskom only, and then if I had to go with the option of, say, installing solar panels, how long would it take for me to start financially being in the green? In other words, I've got all my money back.
So typically these systems amortize between 4.5 to 5 years. In other words, the capital cost will be recovered there in your savings, and the life of a solar panel is 25 years, and that's not a speculative 25 years. It's actually underwritten, so it's a performance guarantee that at 25 years it will still be making as a minimum 80% of the original power that it was making 25 years ago. And that's usually underwritten by Swiss Re or Lloyd's, or one of the big insurance companies.
Okay.
So even if the company's gone insolvent in the interim, you have that guarantee. The savings then are absolutely astronomical, and it's really an effect of the compounding increases by Eskom. If you can imagine 8, 10, 12, what are we seeing? We're seeing 20% next year. So compound that out. I mean, if we continue seeing 20% increases, the savings you will make will be millions and millions. But we're using the 5 kilowatt system. That would amortize in about 4 years and 8 months, and it would pay you back about 890,000 rand over the life of the system in savings.
Wow.
And that's assuming, the assumption there is that we see 13%, and then decreasing to 10, 8%, or forever the optimists. We're hoping that Eskom, comes back.
And the great thing is, even if you don't end up being in that house for 25 years, when it comes to selling, obviously, you can factor that into your selling price as well, and hopefully charge a slightly better premium on your house.
Yeah, in fact, in San Francisco, we don't really have an idea here, but we've kind of used San Francisco numbers. So per watt that you install of solar, you can add about 42 rand to the price of your house. In the US, it's $6,000 per kilowatt. So per 1,000 watts that you put on, you get an additional $6,000 for your house. So when people go looking for homes in the US, one of the key things, we look for proximity to schools, we look for swimming pools, whatever our needs are, and that's going to change. It's going to become, well, does it have solar or not? Or even standby power, maybe not necessarily solar. It may just have a backup inverter with batteries.
So my final question today is, because I often listen to stories in the States about how they're feeding back into the grid. Can we feed back into the grid if we have a solar system?
In certain municipalities. So there's a national program called the Small Scale Embedded Generator, which the embedded generator is really a solar system. And that has not been completely defined as a standard, but what they have said is that municipalities, at their discretion and within certain bounds, can permit it, but you have to apply. And then, so the negative of that is that the feed-in tariff that you get back is kind of 40-50 cents. So we're paying call it R1.70, but you're getting a minimal amount back. That's why we try to design for self-consumption. So putting back in doesn't really pay you that much.
Joburg Council?
Yeah, they've now permitted.
Grumpily.
No, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
I think also it lessens the burden on the councils, and lessens the burden on Eskom for people doing this, because I know we have surplus of power at the moment, but hopefully our economy will recover and we'll have all the smelters and mines running again, and there'll be a demand for power again.
So if someone wants to get in touch with you to find out more, how do they get hold of you?
Okay, our telephone number is 011 886 7874, or the Sinetech, which is sinetech.co.za.
So whether we're talking residential or business, it's a long-term investment, but there's definitely financial gains once you've initially got through that capital expenditure.
Yeah. And we have partners nationwide that we work with, who are approved and trained by us, and so you will contact us and we refer them to the appropriate partner in the geographic area.
Lovely stuff. Chris Rodgers, CEO of Sinetech, thank you for coming in and enlightening us a bit more about solar.
Thank you, Mark.
Really appreciate it. That feature brought to you by Sinetech. That number again, 011 886 7874, or visit sinetech.co.za.